Okay, so I'm going to show you guys how to make these pictures on canvas. Basically what I did was I printed out some laser pictures from Staples or something like that. I have an inkjet printer, so I had to have someone print them on laser, print it on just regular paper, regular copy paper. And you have to reverse the image. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use our Mod Podge photo transfer medium. You need your brush and a blank canvas. Just a blank canvas. I buy a pack from like Michael's, and they're only a couple bucks, and so with getting 3 or 4 in a pack, it makes it pretty inexpensive. So I'm going to show you my process on how to do this. All in all, with all the supplies and everything, each picture comes out to only costing you a couple dollars to make, and they come out really cute, like a little rustic type of look. You can add a frame around it, around here, and I'll show you what that looks like. I'll post a picture of that, but you can do them black and white, or you can do them in color. Okay, so the first thing that you want to do is you want to cut this down to size. So I'm just going to take my scissors and cut this down to size. Okay, so now that's cut down to size. It does not have to be perfect because I'm putting it on a white canvas, but you want to try and get as much of that white as possible, because when you put the medium on it and you put it onto the canvas, the white will will go on it. So obviously you don't want like a big piece, and plus your picture will be uneven when you put it on the canvas if you have like a bunch of white over here. So okay, so that's the second step. You're going to cut it down. Okay, so the next step is to get your canvas. Let me move this a little closer. To get your canvas, and one thing I wanted to show you is sometimes those Michael's canvases can have like little dings in them. I think you can see that. As long as they're not horrible, you can still use them, because basically with this photo transfer medium, it's kind of like a glue and a paint in one, and it's going to seal that, and your picture is going to go over it, so you're not going to see that little nick there. I mean, if there's like a big gash, then yeah, I'd probably return it. I've had a couple of times where I've gotten those packages and they had that, so but it's not a big deal. So okay, there's a couple different ways that I have tried doing the transfer. So one of the ways that I've tried doing it is actually putting the medium on this. Sorry, my son's in the background. Is putting the medium on the picture and then flipping it over and putting it on the canvas. That works. It's okay if you're doing like smaller pictures. Once you put this photo down, you don't want to pick it up and reposition it. You want to get it right the first time. So if you're working with like a larger picture, what I found to be kind of the easier way is to cut it down as much as possible, put a little bit of just like a thin row of photo transfer medium, and then line your picture up there, so that it, if you have to reposition it, you're only repositioning this top, because it makes the paper pretty wet, and it's really hard to reposition when this whole picture has your photo transfer medium on it. So I'm gonna show you that, and show you my process. Okay. And you want to put a good amount of photo transfer medium on it, but you don't want to drench it. So what I do is just kind of one line right across. And then I take my brush and I just kind of paint that onto like a thin, Just not a very wide line, just about like that. Let me show you. I don't know if you can see that. So you can see that it's on there and it goes on white. Okay, and then so what you want to do is you want to line it up as best you can. I like to kind of overlap just a smidge right here so that there's definitely no white showing. And then of course if you put a frame there, you definitely won't see any white. So smooth that down and then just work your way down. So you're gonna flip this picture back. Let me get my paintbrush out of the way. Okay, so what you see that I've been doing with each section is kind of smoothing it down. That's because you do not want to have any bubbles. If you have any bubbles in your between your Mod Podge photo medium transfer and your picture, it will show up. And I did one like that, and it was not great. It actually ruins the canvas. So I'm just making sure all the bubbles are out. You don't want to press too hard, especially when you have all of your picture down already, because like I said, it makes it pretty wet. So you don't want to do, too much pressure. But you can, if you have like a little, like I use my Cricut squeegee, and we'll go, pretty light on it. But just kind of get out some of those bubbles, or you can just smooth it over this way. This one actually turned out pretty smooth, I feel like. No bubbles there. But I can show you one that I did here. You see those bubbles there? I don't know if you can see that. There's some bubbles there. So I don't know how that's going to turn out, but we'll have to look and see. So you do have to let this set for 24 hours. So I will show you what one looks like. I'll come back in once this is all dry, and show you how to peel it off. You have to, the next step will be like this. So I'll show you how to kind of peel the paper off, or, you have to kind of rub it off with a wet cloth. So I'll show you that here in a minute. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is you want to get a wet rag, just a plain like scrap rag. Mine has like paint stains on it. Like it's my crafting rag. And you want to get it wet and then wring it out. You want it to be wet, but not like soaking or dripping water on it. So you want so wring it out, make sure it's wet, and this actually has dried, so I probably need to get it wet again. And then all you're gonna do is just lay it over your canvas. And I usually will like fold the sides up just to kind of get more of the moisture on it. And you're just gonna let it sit there for about 10-15 minutes or so. Check it, you'll see it's starting to get wet there. I have this one over here that's been sitting for 7 or 8 minutes or so, and it's almost completely done. So I'm going to put the wet rag back on this one, and then I'll show you the next step. So go ahead and get your rag and wet it, wring it out so that it's wet but not dripping, and then we'll come back and do the next step. Okay, so this has been sitting here for about 15 minutes or so. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this back, and you'll see that most of it is the paper's pretty saturated. There's some spots that aren't. Sorry, there's an awful shadow, so you can see my tripod. So what you're gonna do is you're just gonna pick an edge and just kind of start rubbing the paper off. You want to use like medium pressure. You don't want to press too hard because you will rub the picture off, but just kind of work in one spot and you'll get a corner that will peel, and you can see here it starts to like kind of roll. And then you can just work from that corner. So what I do is I try and get that first layer off of the whole picture, and then I go back, and then I work on the fuzzies. That way you have kind of an even pressure of scraping off, you know, the picture, and it lessens your chance of actually accidentally rubbing the piece of the picture off. So just kind of work around that. And if it gets dry, you can, sometimes what I'll do is I'll leave this piece on so that that piece stays wet, and then I can move from section to section. Okay, so one thing I want to show you, I did make a little bit of a boo-boo here, and so I want to show you, because this may happen to some of you. I rubbed a little bit too hard right there, and some of my picture came off. So, which is fine. It's at the bottom. That happens usually with the corners. So when you're doing the edges, you want to make sure that you're like rubbing kind of along the edge, or on the bottom here, you know, you want to rub to the edge. Because if you're rubbing down, you're gonna take a piece of the picture off, which is what I did down, which is what I did down here. I was rubbing back and forth, and then I, you know, went like that, and some of the picture came off. So just make sure you're kind of going with the frame of the picture. Also, it got a little bit too dry down here, so that's also why it got a little delicate. So okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and finish this, and then I'll come back and show you what the first layer looks like once I have kind of like this middle part that I still need to get out. So I'll do that, and then I will come right back. Okay. So I have that initial layer off now, and you can see it's kind of just fuzzy now. You can see it's just kind of fuzzy, and my table looks amazing. All the paper, so just kind of scoot all that out of the way. And now you're going to work on these fuzzies. So my canvas is still damp. So I'm just going to take my hand and very lightly just run it across. And you're going to see that all the fuzzies start coming up. Don't put a lot of pressure into it. It's better if you do more rounds of getting the fuzzies off versus more pressure. So work slow. Also, when you are at this phase, if this is too wet, you will take your picture off. Sorry, Liam started fussing for more puff snacks. Okay, so what was I saying? So you don't want to start doing this if it's too wet. So how can you tell if it's too wet? So if you're rubbing your hand across it and you feel like you're more just like smearing in the paper, instead of it just easily starting to flake up, like up here it's kind of flaking really easily. You can see the flakes. Whereas down here, let me move all this stuff out of the way. It's starting to a little bit, but it's mainly just kind of smearing it. it's still a little too wet down here. And I actually just had this cloth on the bottom while I was finishing up getting the top layer of this paper off. So that's probably why this is a little bit more wet than up here. So I'm gonna go ahead and just lightly rub my hand across the whole picture and just do that to get a good initial layer off. And then I'm gonna get it wet again and let it dry just a little bit. And I'll probably do this 3 times, maybe 4 if I need a 4th time. So just be patient with it. It's better, like I said, to do this more rounds of the light pressure than to do too much pressure and you end up taking a piece of your picture off. Okay, so that was the first layer. I put my cloth back over it. I'm gonna let it sit for just maybe another minute or 2, and then I'll take the cloth off and let it dry just a little bit, and then we'll do the second layer. Okay, so I just took the cloth off. I let it sit for like a minute or 2. Just took it off, and you can see that I still need to do another round because it still looks fuzzy when it's wet. So what you're going for is that it's clear when it's wet. So keep doing rounds until you get that nice clear picture once you wet it with the washcloth. Okay, so the way you can tell that you've got pretty much most of the paper off of your transfer here. It's still going to look cloudy after you've done a couple rounds of wetting it and lightly rubbing off the paper. It is still going to look cloudy. The way that you can kind of test it is when it's wet, if the image looks clear. And I'm going to show you a trick to keep it clear because obviously when it dries, it's going to go back to being cloudy. So if it looks pretty clear when it's wet, you know it's ready. Okay, so I let it dry, and you can see it got cloudy again. But so now I've taken enough off that when it is wet, sorry, there's an awful shadow. When it is wet, it's clear. So now what you need to do is just grab some olive oil and a paper towel, and we're just gonna wet our paper towel with some of the oil, just a little bit. Like that. And we are just going to rub it onto the canvas. Just do a little bit at a time. You don't want to saturate it too much. And you just keep doing that until the whole canvas has the clear picture, like when you were wetting it with the washcloth. And you don't want to rub too hard, again, because you don't want to rub the picture off. So I'm just lightly kind of going over it, just trying to wet it. I am not trying to scrape off any more of the paper. You could even dab it if that's easier. And you can see some of my corners I pressed a little too hard. that's okay, because I'm actually going to put a frame around these, and I kind of like the rustic look. I probably would have stressed it anyways, because the wall that it's going on has a bunch of wood stuff, and it's just kind of the theme that I seem to have. Okay, so now that's done. You can see that it looks like it still has that wet look to it. There's my corner that I rubbed a little too hard, and then that one as well. Okay, so now what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your Mod Podge or whatever sealer you're using. I use the Mod Podge acrylic spray, and I just spray right over top of it. I'm actually gonna redo this one little corner right here. So let me take the phone outside, and I can show you that step on how to seal it, and then you're done unless you want to do a frame. Okay, so I took this outside, and sorry if it's not super great light. It's like almost 7 o'clock here right now. And basically, so what I'm going to do is I'm taking my Mod Podge clear acrylic sealer. It's make sure you get the matte finish. It's like not focusing. Hopefully you can see that. And I'm just going to spray it over top of it. Okay. I would let that dry for a little bit, and then do another layer. Okay, so one thing I want to show you, this is dried. The Mod Podge coat that I put on is dried, but can you see how it's still a little, some of the fuzz is coming back? If that happens, all you have to do is just put another coat of the olive oil on it, and then just do another coat of Mod Podge acrylic sealer right over top, and that'll fix it. Okay, so there it is. I put another coat of the olive oil on it, and then did another coat of Mod Podge, and you can see it's pretty clear now. So it gets rid of those remaining fuzzies, and it's sealed, so I can just go ahead and anything that's still on there, I can just run my hand over it and it comes right off. So again, it's got some imperfections on it, which I kind of like because I'm going to put a frame over it. So you won't even see those, but it's going with the rustic look too. So, but all in all, this thing cost me about $3 to make. So yeah, thanks for watching, and post a picture of the ones you did below. I'd love to see them. Thanks, guys.